Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terror Podcast, Season 10, Episode 31. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being with us this Friday, Steelers Nation. The bye week, a pretty quiet week around here, but Dave, good for you to get some time away. You're heading to, downtown Vegas tonight?
Yeah, I'm good. Well, I think we're going to go down to the older part of Vegas tonight. I think we're going to go down to Fremont Street. We're all lighted up. Quite a spectacle. Anybody who's ever been to Fremont Street before knows what I'm talking about. And any of those listening who are going to Vegas for the first time, Fremont Street's got to be on your list of things to do. We're going to go down to the Stratosphere. It's been a while since we've gone up high at night to take in the city at night. And also we're going to go to the Stratosphere, I think, tonight and go up to the top of that and all. I'll have my phone with me. I'll probably take a couple pictures and tweet them out, but need to get away a little bit tonight. I think it'll be a perfect time to do it with the Steelers on the bye and not much going on this Friday night.
Yeah, Steelers don't play this weekend. They don't play next weekend because it's a Monday night game. So it's a long layoff for the Steelers. Hopefully, though, someone that might miss some time is Patrick Mahomes, that Thursday night game. Do you think Randy Fichtner's on his high horse right now about the quarterback sneak situation?
Yeah, I told Jens that got to watch those piles and that and stuff like that. You know, what gets me is immediately that happens, a couple of Steelers beat writers come out and say, for all of y'all, there you go. Those of y'all bitching about quarterback, sneaks and stuff like that. Look, one thing I get, Ben Roethlisberger tore his elbow up throwing the football. I guess that means no quarterback should throw a pass anymore, right?
Yeah, run the single wing.
And even Andy Reid said last night, it's a freak thing, you know? You can't run around living in your fears all the time. And look, was it unfortunate? By the sound of things, it sounds like Mahomes got lucky. They popped his knee back in. I know they're waiting for an MRI and all today to confirm what they think they already know. But it sounds like dislocated knee or kneecap or whatnot. Then pop that thing back in and I think he might maybe miss a couple weeks, but should be good to go. And you don't do a quarterback sneak because one quarterback popped his knee out,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you remove plays from your playbook or ideas from your playbook based off what gets you hurt, you wouldn't have a playbook. You would just take a knee every single play. So I know the Fichtner will probably say that, and that will be kind of his justification. And I get that to some small degree, but you can't play that scared. It's an effective play. It's rarely do quarterbacks get hurt. Tom Brady's been doing it for his entire career. Even at 42, it's still effective. We're leading up with obviously a minor point here, but to use that as the basis for not running that play at all would just be silly.
Yeah, I mean, and a couple of these beat writers are using it as results bias. I mean, they're they're just doing it to reverse the narrative on it, to make waves and all. It's just silly,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I know anytime Fichtner ever gets asked about that again, that's the play and the moment.
Sure. He'll point. Look, he can say what he wants. He's the offensive coordinator, and we can criticize it as well too. Look, nobody's asking them to do a quarterback sneak on every 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. But I mean, there are instances I think where you have to let the quarterback survey the situation and make the decision whether or not he can call his own number in a situation like that. And right now, Rudolph or whoever's under center doesn't have the luxury to do that.
Correct, and I think that's the wrong move from the Steelers. But speaking of Mason Rudolph and speaking of the quarterback situation, Mike Tomlin spoke to the media the other day and just confirmed, and this is obvious, that Mason Rudolph will be the starting quarterback for the Steelers. And I don't know why there was so much of a controversy about it. I thought it was a pretty clear decision before Hodges started, certainly after Hodges started, despite getting the victory. But Mason Rudolph, your starting quarterback, has cleared concussion protocol, so he should be all good to go for Monday night at Miami.
Because people wanted the shiny new toy. They want momentum. They want
a story, yeah.
Everything that goes. They want Duck's cooler, the underdog type situation. Look, I mean, it's what he pulled off the other night just from a historical aspect and all, with all the things going really against the Steelers heading into that game, luckily that game was technically in Heinz Field West. Boy, you more and more of these pictures surface and the videos surface from that game, and kudos to Steelers fans for showing up like they did in that game and all. So, but I mean, it was a huge monumental thing, and overall, when you look at what was accomplished during that game from a passing standpoint. Look, they didn't need him to do all that much, thanks to the defense, getting the turnovers and staking the team to the lead the way they did and all like that. But I mean, he's got a lot to work on too as a young quarterback. I mean, I appreciate him trying to push the football down the field to Johnny Holden when he did, but that was just all. I mean, I think you put a still or a GIF of that on Twitter machine as well too. That was unneeded, unnecessary push down the football field, and it got it picked off in that instance there. And really, what did he complete? 2 passes, more than 5 yards down the football field there. So, look, he belongs on an NFL roster. He should stay on the NFL roster. He should be the team's number 2 quarterback going forward. But Mason Rudolph's your starter.
Well said. I agree 100%. There was no doubt in my mind. Rudolph was drafted to be the year. He has played well, and you're going to go back to him. It's as simple as that. So he'll be your starter. I think that was really it for Tomlin. Tomlin talked about some of the health of the team and trying to get some guys back, and it was nondescript as expected, kind of on exactly where these guys might be, but seemed pretty positive on really the whole group, whether that's Joe Hayden, Steven Nelson, T.J. Watt, Rosie Nix, James Washington. I'm sure I'm missing some names here. Jalen Samuels is obviously remaining out, but I think the team after the bye is going to be in a pretty good place health-wise.
Yeah, I think so too. It sounds like they could get a few guys back, hopefully. Obviously, it is still early here, but Mike Tomlin had to say, let's see, what did he say first of all? First of all, on some of the guys that have been out, some are progressing nicely. Rosie Nix is progressing nicely. Boy, it'd be nice to get him back, wouldn't it, Alex?
Mm-hmm.
With these young quarterbacks and, trying to maybe get a little bit more dedicated to the run to kind of protect these fragile, this fragile offense, if you will, getting back on the field 15, snaps a game, something along those lines. That really would be great to see.
I mean, his next offensive snap will be his first of the year.
Because he didn't play. Yeah,
because he didn't play against them. I mean, he got hurt in week 1, but he didn't play in the New England.
That's right. He only played special teams. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So, most definitely. I mean, get to run some a little bit of power behind him and all like that. So it would be great to see if they can get him back. And Tomlin goes on to say, and again, that work will be our guide in terms of availability. Same could be said for James Washington and Mark Barron. James Washington obviously dealing with a shoulder injury. Mark Barron dealing with a hamstring injury. Steven Nelson dealing with a groin, less so with Jalen Samuels with that knee for obvious reasons because he had that thing scoped not too long ago. They're not expecting him back for the Monday night game, or probably maybe not the next one after that, so we'll have to keep our eyes peeled out for that. He then proceeded to update the conditions of the players who were injured Sunday night against the Chargers. That would be running back James Conner with that quad, outside linebacker T.J. Watt with the oblique, and cornerback Joe Hayden with the groin there. He says some of the guys that sustained injury in game, they have been evaluated. Their practice availability may be limited at early portions of the week. I'm guessing he's meaning next week and not this week, but he said that on Wednesday. They will have an opportunity to work through it, improve their overall readiness. Those guys being James Conner, Joe Hayden, and T.J. Watt. Conner with his quad, Joe Hayden with his groin, T.J. Watt with his abdomen. Expect both. There's 3 guys, but he says expect both of those guys to prove their readiness throughout the course of the week and get prepared to play in our next game. I think James Conner talked about being kind of battered up a little bit in the quad area. We talked about, I think, on the other show with who was that dribbled him off the ground. Thomas Davis on one of them there, and then one of those safeties hitting right in the quad there on another third quarter or fourth quarter run or pass and catch and run in the second half there. So keep your fingers crossed about him. We'll have to see about Joe Hayden on that groin, but like we said, no bad time for a bye week, and this certainly wasn't a bad time for the Steelers and their bye. And by the way, on the bye, Mason Rudolph got cleared out of concussion protocol finally, and it sounds like he should be good to go to resume full practices when they resume practicing.
Even this far out, I think you can reasonably assume that Rudolph is going to play, Nelson will play, I think Caden will play, Connor is going to go. Nix is still up in the air. I'd like to think that Washington will have a good chance to return. McDonald only missed a week from a very similar injury and has a less in-line physical position to play. So we'll have to see. Tomlin will come back either Tuesday or Wednesday for his presser before the Dolphins game, but I think you're going to hear mostly good news on the injury front.
Yeah.
All right. That was basically it from Tomlin. I know there isn't a whole lot to talk about today. Dave, you have a good couple of tweets and articles on Steelers Depot about the Steelers defense and why there is plenty of reason for optimism. So I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to the adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat, which I love, I think it's a real good indicator of things, especially when it comes to all things defense, when it comes to interceptions, when it comes to sacks, when it comes to completion percentage. The basis of the stat, I think, kind of goes from Chase. What's his last name? Stewart from Pro Football Reference there. I love everything about the stat, and especially 6 weeks into the season and on. I think it's a good kind of measuring stick and predictive kind of tool to use, not only on defense but offense as well too. Because let's face it, this is a passing league that we are in now. So the better that you are against the pass and all things against the pass, the better. And when you look at the Steelers' adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat through the first 6 games of the season, that stat is 5.60, and league-wide, that's ranked 10th overall. So not bad league-wide. Since week 1, the week 1 loss to New England Patriots, the Steelers' defensive NEA stat is a stellar 4.51. All right, so once again, Tom Brady obviously tore him up against the pass. A lot of things have kind of changed since then. I mean, heck, we were Sean Davis no longer in there. You got Minka Fitzpatrick in there. Didn't we see a lot of Davis or Cameron Kelly in that opener too?
Yeah, we did.
So look, I mean, they are making improvements in that area. So how does the 2019 Steelers pass defense through 6 games compare to previous year's Steelers defense dating back, under Tomlin through 2007 through 6 games? And really, as a whole, not bad overall, and especially in the adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat. I have all of them, with completion percentage and yards per attempt, all broken down in the post that I did on Thursday there. But you go back a couple years ago in 2017 through 6 games, the Steelers had an adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat of 3.75. And of course, the lower the number, if any of you are new to that stat, the better. 3.75 is outstanding. Now, if you go back and look and see who the Steelers played in those first 6 games, you think, okay, well, maybe that wasn't as good as what the stat actually reflects. And I think quality of opponent really means a lot in that. And I wish I had a better way of going back and looking at at instantly kind of pulling these numbers up to see kind of the across who the opponents were against other teams as well, outside of playing the Steelers in the first six games. But I went and looked at this year alone, and as I wrote here, let it be known that the 3.75 NEA stat posted by the 2017 Steelers defense in the first six games came against quite a few opposing offenses that weren't great. That year's defense eventually, remember, got exposed during the second half, specifically of that regular season, and ended the year with still a respectable number, but obviously from where it was, shows that they went backwards in that area, and they finished that year with what was the number here? 5.2 that year. That was the year, of course, that they had lost Ryan Shazier to the spinal injury kind of later in the season. Now, that team obviously ultimately made the playoffs, but remember what the Jacksonville Jaguars did with Blake Bortles and Fournette, I guess, was that Fournette's rookie season? I think it was, right?
Yeah.
2017.
Mm-hmm.
So that ended up not being overall great defense by the time the dust had settled. Now, remember they playing L.J. Fort, they're playing Sean Spence. I mean, what a mess inside there. Now the Steelers' 2019 defense has already been, in my opinion, and probably yours as well, Alex, has been heavily tested so far through the first 6 games. Sure, the defense chewed up a very dismal Cincinnati Bengals offense, but that unit has already faced a few of the better offenses in the NFL so far this season, in the Patriots, the Seahawks, and the San Francisco 49ers. And say what you will about the Los Angeles Chargers, but they still got a great quarterback in Phillip Rivers. And anytime that you kind of really manhandle that offense the way they did through the first 3 quarters, isn't awful either. So when you look at those 6 offenses that they've already played through the first 6 games, and you look at what those teams have done offensively in their adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat against other opponents other than the Steelers so far this season, that number for them offensively is 7.19, and that's obviously high. So it shows you that those have been some good passing offenses the Steelers have played. It shows you that Steelers have come out of those 6 games with, anytime you're under like that 5.8, 5.9 number defensively, you are in the realm of you've got a Super Bowl contending team in my opinion. And they're there right now. Now, week 6 is kind of in that gray area. Week 6 is right when I like to start tracking this stat, but definitely after week 8, halfway point of the season, this stat on both sides of the football should tell you pretty much who you are, and there's probably not going to be much more variance going on other than that. Now, when you look across the league right now, the New England Patriots, you want another reason to hate the Patriots? 1.50.
Wow.
I mean,
that's historic.
I mean, that's crazy. I mean, that it's so crazy. You would expect expect it to go backwards, some. Mm-hmm. But I mean, when you watch that defense play, and I think that's one thing that stuck out right out of the chute when we were previewing the Patriots before that first game. That defense, there's questions about the offense and all, but that defense, well, as usual, they have the offense right where it needs to be, slightly above average with a 7.10 adjusted net yards per passing attempt. They have a differential right now of 5.60, and that is just crazy. And differential, of course, is a differential between your offensive adjusted net yards per passing attempt number and your defensive. I mean, that is just unreal. I mean, behind them is heading into last night's game were the 49ers with a 3.7 differential, which is eye-popping, as is the Kansas City Chiefs 3.6, as is the Seattle Seahawks differential of 3.0. Couple of those teams are going to regress a little bit. All of them should start coming back to earth a little bit here in these next couple of weeks here. But when you look overall, and here's, I guess what I'm getting at here is there's reasons to be optimistic just off the Steelers defense alone related to the adjusted net yards per passing attempt number. As I mentioned, after about week 6, 7, 8, if you're under that 6-point number, 5.8 or lower roughly, if you have any type of offense whatsoever, you should be able to have a chance at the playoffs. And we know the Steelers offense hasn't been great yet. They're still trying to find out an identity, still trying to learn how to throw the football down the field. But if they can get there, and I think another thing is when you look at the Steelers' upcoming schedule after the bye, they have the Colts and the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins have the worst defensive adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat in the league at 10.80. You want to talk about bad? I mean, that's bad, brother. And then their offensive adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat is 2.6. I mean, you're talking about a bad team here in the Dolphins, and you're also talking about a not-so-great team in the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously a lot more dangerous than the Dolphins are. But the Steelers, even with Mason Rudolph at quarterback right now, and despite the injuries that this team has had, they should be expected to win both those games. And if they do, you're setting up for a very interesting game against the Rams. And then, of course, your next 3 games after that are all division games against the Browns with a game against the Bengals sandwiched in between there. So just from a defensive standpoint in one stat alone, and then looking at the schedule, there's reasons I think to be optimistic here, Alex.
There's no doubt the defense is playing as well as it has in a long time, and it's clearly the strength of the team. But as you mentioned earlier, if you can have any sort of offense, and I'm sure the counterpoint every listener's thinking right now is, well, how good is that offense? What's the Steelers' offensive number right now in that same stat?
It's 5.8, which for the Steelers is low. Normally that thing, I think around this time of year, hovers between 6.9 to 7.5,
Mm-hmm. What does that rank? Do you have a ranking on that? To put that in context?
Let's see. I can tell you where they are ranked.
Bottom third, I'm sure.
This year, if you give me just a moment here.
I mean, I imagine it's like 25th, something like that.
The league average is, hold on a minute here.
Somewhere around there?
The league average is 6.2.
Okay,
so they're just below average at 5.8. They're ranked 19th overall in offensive adjusted net yards per passing attempt number. To give you the kind of the range, though, you have the Chiefs that went into last night at over at over 9. Then you had the Seahawks. I mean, you obviously have some outliers here that are going to come, back to earth. I'll put it to you this way: anytime you have 7 or above, that's a great offense or good enough offense. No, you have the Ravens, for instance, that are right at about 6.9. With them, the 49ers are 6.9. The Packers are 6.8. The Colts, who we just mentioned, actually have a higher offensive number than the Steelers at 6.2. Believe it or not, the Steelers' 5.8 is just slightly higher than that of the Rams. And look, that Rams offense has been, to watch it, you think, man, it's pretty ugly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even the Bengals, 5.4 for the Bengals. So when Mike Tomlin talked to the media the other day and was asked about, what kind of improvements can this offense make? And he said, what did he say? Substantial, or
yeah.
and kind of he let out a, kind of a laugh ahead of that. There is, I guess, the positive thing here is that overall, since Rudolph went down, Roethlisberger went down, the offense hasn't been awful. It has survived. Even though, look, let's face it, the fumble late against the 49ers was crushing. The fumble in overtime. Alex, we are one juju fumble away. And look, I know you can go around the league and cherry pick one play probably for every team. All right. But realistically, we saw the game flow and what was happening in that game. And yeah, it was the third string quarterback in Duck Hodges, though. But you just had a feeling that if Juju holds on to that ball, that maybe they're going to have a chance at a game-winning field goal there. And if they do, we're talking about, we are talking about a first-place AFC North team right now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I'm obviously not bullish on the offense right now, other than the fact of thinking that they're going to be coming out of the bye. And good time to have a bye to go back in and look at everything, self-evaluation, as you always like to talk about, and self-assessment and self-scouting. If they can, and the two opponents that they have post-bye, boy, what a time to get this offense on track against the teams like the defenses against the Dolphins and the Colts. And if they can show some improvement, especially with being able to push the football down the field more, and especially getting more consistency out of the running game here, like I said, going into that game against the Rams, that could be a huge turning point in the season there.
Sure. Randy Fichtner talked about self-scouting yesterday or the other day, and I think the bye week prevents a good chance to reset and kind of take a breath and figure stuff out because you haven't really had a chance to breathe since Ben went down and just been scrambling and just in fight or flight mode for the last 5 weeks. But to go back to the defense, because obviously they are playing well and we've given them high marks for the job they've done. I had a question yesterday in my mailbag that said, the defense is playing well. What does that mean for the future of Keith Butler? His contract's expiring after this season. Are they going to sign him back? Are they going to let him go? Obviously you're going to wait and see on how this season unfolds, so you can't really give a definitive answer right now, but I wanted to take your temperature because I'm not 100% sure anymore what they're going to do. Could they justify that and say that the defense is playing well? But my perspective was, well, you give any coach that kind of talent, they're bound to play well, so it's not really that Butler's doing a great job. He's just being handed the best talent, possibly assembled. So where do you weigh in on that?
So phrase that again.
What is Keith Butler's future? Is he going to be the defensive coordinator in 2020? Is the short answer or short question?
I think I think that's yet to be decided.
Well, sure, but where are you at right now? Again, it's going to be dependent on how this season ends up. But this defense is playing well right now. Obviously they've invested a ton into this defense, but have your thoughts changed from where you were prior to the start of the year compared to 6 weeks into this thing?
Yeah, I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting to be shown the baby.
What would that baby look like in terms of a playoff run, or the defense is playing this well the remainder of the way?
The defense playing well. Obviously, I think all this is going to go hand in hand. This team still has to make the playoffs here. I think for a few of these guys to remain.
Like Butler, you saying?
Yeah, I think. Look, I don't think any of us think right now that Randy's going anywhere.
Right. We said a few of those guys, so I don't know.
I think Butler, Danny Smith, those kind of guys.
Even if the defense plays well and they just miss it because of the offense and the terrible hole they've dug themselves, you think Butler still would go?
I think. Once again, I think it depends on what these kind of numbers look like.
Mm-hmm.
Are your sacks up there where they should be? Are the turnovers astronomically better than we've already met 50, the 15 last year.
Accomplished both of those things. The sacks should be good, and the turnovers are certainly going to be better.
This team's not great on third down still, right? Defensively. If there's one area where we could look at this team right now and say, oh yeah, they got to get better, is third downs defensively, correct?
Correct. I think they're average, a little below average. Yeah, again, with Butler, they're doing well this year, but I think you give any coach that kind of talent with 10 first-round picks on the team. I don't know if that's enough to justify that Butler's doing a great job. I think he's doing okay, but I think you could bring in somebody else and get similar and hopefully better production.
Here's the thing with the defensive, even with Tuitt going down. Okay, that's a big loss, but that to me, that could be overcame here. But with defensive talent they have on that team, all the first rounders and all going out and getting Minka and him getting more settled in, and Bush should only be expected to get better. You got Vince back, boy. Vince, you want to talk about a guy just running around with his hair on fire? The deeper that you get into the impact that he had on that tape against the Chargers the other night, and then really against the Ravens as well too. There's no reason this defense shouldn't be top 10.
Right. And if it is, then it's likely that Butler comes back.
I would guess so, yeah.
And I think that they've shown a lot of loyalty to him, right or wrong. And I think the reason why they've done that is because he showed a lot of loyalty to them, because he could have left a long time ago with the whole, Dick LeBeau hadn't retired and Butler was getting offers. I think the Colts were looking at him at one point for a DC job, and he stayed kind of knowing that, okay, I'm going to be the heir to this thing. So I'm not saying that's the right way to do it. It's probably the wrong way to do it, but I think that they've shown a lot of loyalty to him because he's been pretty loyal to him throughout his coaching career.
Yeah, once again, I think we could be singing a different tune here if this defense continues to play like we think they're capable of playing, and against the competition. If we were to divide this thing up into the first 6 games that they played, and then again, the next 6 that they play, you would expect what we just talked about with the adjusted net yards per passing attempt number You would expect it to be lower than what it was through these first 6 games, right?
At worst, stay about the same. Yeah, or get better.
I mean, who scares you here in these next 6 games? I mean, let's go through them. Miami, Indianapolis, the Rams, the Browns twice, and the Bengals. All right,
Yeah.
now obviously the Browns will be some sort of test, you would think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the Rams, I know they've struggled, but I think McVay's got a schematic advantage against the Steelers, and they still have some good talent at receiver, and I think the Colts are probably better than maybe how they've played recently. But yeah, again, I think that, that number can be pretty similar to the way it was the first 6 games.
It should be better, and if it's not, I'm afraid to think, the optimism will be gone. If it's not, I got to be honest with you, Alex, I'm expecting that number to be around a 5, 5.0 or less in these next 6 games. And if it's not, then they probably have lost 1 or 2 or 3 of those games because of the offense. Because I don't expect. I don't know. You tell me. What do you? How much? What we talked about the defense. What we expect out of that in the next 6 games. Where do you expect this offense to be from? Let's say. Let me ask you this: do you like that stat or no?
I like it. I mean, I don't like it as much as you. It's probably harder for me to think about conceptually, but I like and appreciate the value the stat has shown in the success rate that it's correlated with.
I mean, because it takes everything into account, right? It takes into account sacks. It takes into account completion percentage. Now, obviously, completion percentage with shorter passes in the NFL will obviously lead to higher completion percentages. But I mean, interceptions is a big part of it. Touchdown passes is a big part of it. And in no way does it encompass run game. Which is plays a part obviously in offenses and winning, and obviously in defenses too. If you can't stop a run, why in the world would somebody pass against you? Would be the argument against that. But I think overall, top to bottom, and just on a predictive level over the course of the last, 20 years, it's just an incredible stat. So with that, what kind of knowing where the Steelers are, which is a little less than average across league wide, where do you expect them to be in the next 6 games?
I like them to be around 7, a little below maybe, because you think again chance to reset there on the bye. I think just be able to have a better game plan, again, be able to catch your breath, talk with Rudolph, figure out exactly what this offense needs. You play in some worse teams, you should be able to beat up on Miami pretty good, I think. Eventually, the passing offense is not going to be this bad. Consistently, they're not going to struggle as much as they have. They're not going to be as bad on third down, hopefully, as they were the first 5 games where they were 28% before finally picking things up against the Chargers. So, I would hope that number would go up at minimum, but I think it can go up about a full point.
All right, so you were thinking maybe around. Give me a number here.
At least between 6.5 and 7.
All right, so what if we met in the middle at 6.75?
Sure.
You think they could get there?
I think it's possible. I think they really need to, though. I mean, maybe it's more of a need to than a want to, but I think that number can and will improve, and I think it can go about a point.
All right, let's say they got to 6.5. And the defense got to at least 5. You would think 5 for the defense for that stat would be attainable, right?
Again, I wonder how exactly the loss of Tua is going to manifest itself, because that's going to hurt you for sure.
I just told you that the 5 games, and once again, when you get into sample size, one game can kind of shifted a little bit. That's why I always like to start monitoring this at week 6 and all. I know our geekness has lost probably a lot of listeners here, but I think this is an important part of looking at why there should be some optimism with this team. So let me end it with this. If the net differential of the offense and defensive adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat can be 1.5 or greater in the next 6 weeks, we're going to be talking about a team that potentially going to make the playoffs here.
Yeah, because would
you agree?
Yeah, because you would think if that scenario plays out, this team goes no worse than 4-2 over their next 6, right?
Yeah, I would think they would go 4-2 at worst. Right.
which puts them at 6-6 after 12 games.
Right.
And for the AFC North, then you're right in it.
Now, as long as you haven't, I suppose one of those losses could come to Cleveland, right? But you better win. You better beat Cleveland again, and you better beat Cincinnati. And you have, I suppose you could go 4-2 with a loss against, let's say, the Rams and a loss against Cleveland, and after 12 games be 6-6, and still feel like you have a chance.
And what are the final 4 games of the year? You got what, the
Arizona, Buffalo,
Jets,
and Baltimore, right?
So let's say you need at least 9 wins. You'd need to go 3-1 over those final 4. That's doable.
And you'd have to beat
3
you
of
have
those
to make sure you beat the
Baltimore.
Ravens, right?
Yeah. So let's say you got to beat Baltimore, then you got to beat 2 of Arizona, Buffalo, and the Jets, which is very doable in my mind.
Where we sit now, it is. I would think.
Well, I don't know if it's going to change a whole lot by season's end.
Well, I mean, obviously injuries could impact.
Well, sure. I'm trying to just project it right now. I mean, but that's reasonable to say today that they can go 2-1 against Arizona, Buffalo, and the Jets, correct?
I would hope so. I mean, once again, we're talking about. I mean, if there's any sort of regression in this defense in the final 10 games, it's going the other way is going to constitute this team not making the playoffs.
Well, sure, but I'm trying to stay on the optimistic track.
Sure, and I am too, and that boils back into you asking me, is Keith Butler going to keep his job?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, but I'm just trying to say that based off what you're saying and the things we're kind of working through is there's a reasonable path to get to 9-7. Not that it's going to happen. It's going to take a lot. The defense has to play at the same level -2, and the offense has to finally get it in gear. But there is a path to go 9-7, which is possible to win the AFC North with that record this year.
Right, and we've been talking about. I don't even want to talk about wild card, blah blah blah. But I mean, have you looked at this thing?
Yeah, that's true.
Have you looked at this thing lately? I mean, especially after last night, the Steelers are 10th in the AFC following that game last night. Okay.
Oakland has the 8th seed right now.
6th is Oakland. Oakland is the 6th seed.
The 6th seed, yeah. I'm
right.
Saying
The two wild card teams right now are Buffalo and look, this is way too early to look at this. We want to make sure we throw out all the disclaimers out here. But I was looking at it last night, and it kind of raised my eyebrows. I said, well, we're going to have a little bit of time to kill on this podcast. Let's look at it anyway. We're going to be pumping all these people up with optimism in the bye week here, so might as well put a nice little bow on it on top of it here anyway. Buffalo is the 5 seed. Steelers play Buffalo this year. Oakland is the 6th seed. Let's face it, with that defense and all with Oakland, are we expecting Oakland to be there when the dust settles? I don't think so.
I think they'd be in a similar spot as Pittsburgh.
All right, Indianapolis is the 7th seed. The Steelers play them.
Yeah.
Cleveland is the 8th seed. Whatever happens in those couple of games against the Steelers and in the next few weeks will help decide that. Jacksonville's the 9th seed. They just traded away Ramsey. I mean, let's face it. Where do we expect Jacksonville to be in these final 10 games?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be in the mix too much.
And then you have Pittsburgh at the 10th seed here. Now, the Steelers and the Chargers are behind the Steelers right now. You have a head-to-head win against them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Everybody else below you, look, Cincinnati, Miami, the Jets, Denver's pretty much.
Forget about them.
Yeah. Tennessee changed quarterbacks. I mean, if they don't beat, who does Tennessee play this week? San Diego, right? Or Los Angeles, or where San Diego. I mean, either Chargers or Tennessee going to take care of each other this week.
Right. Yeah, the Steelers control their own destiny here. If they beat the Colts and they beat, Cleveland and Buffalo, then they got tiebreakers over them. And
I guess what I'm getting at, before that game against the Rams, or actually, I guess even, I don't know if it's math because of them being on the bye or whatnot, but is it possible that even before the Steelers play Indianapolis, that they could be the 6th seed in the AFC.
I
Is
mean,
that possible?
everyone would have to lose. I haven't looked at it. I imagine it'd be still tough to do, but they could move up a spot or two.
But definitely, I think if the Steelers win their next 2 games, over the course of next 3 weeks in the NFL, then they would probably have a legitimate chance at being at least the 6th seed in the AFC.
Sure. Again, to kind of look at these next couple parts of the season, go 4-2 over your next 6, and then go 3-1 over your final 4. That puts you at 9-7 for the year, which is possible. It's doable.
Right, and you would hope and pray that if you can get the in division wins there for sure.
Sure.
We talked about that being paramount. But I mean, look, we're singing a lot different song than we were 2 weeks ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, where was our? Now let me ask you: will this team make the playoffs?
I don't know. I mean, the odds are still obviously against them. They have to do everything right from here on out. If they have any sort of slip up, if they lose a game to someone that they shouldn't, or they lose that Ravens game week 17, I mean, that stuff can end your season. So I'm not going to proclaim that. I'm just going to say
but that's the fun of this, though. I mean, here we are with 10 games with knowing what you know right now. We just went through a long diatribe of telling these listeners why there's reason to be optimistic, and why in the last basically the last 2 weeks we went from gloom, despair, and agony on me to, hey, look at this,
Mm-hmm.
So where are you?
I mean, if you're forcing me to give you an answer right now, will this team make the playoffs? This is an easy answer, but the answer is no. Just because they've dug themselves too deep of a hole, and statistically, the odds of making the playoffs after that kind of start are low, even knowing some of the optimism. Everything kind of has to go right for this team moving forward the rest of the way. Other teams might have to lose, and you got to be able to beat those opponents like Indy, and if you lose to Buffalo, then that could create a tie-breaking issue, and obviously you can't beat Baltimore week 17, and that's going to be a big headache. So I say no, but I also recognize that it's very easy for me to be wrong about that too.
I'm going to say yes.
All right, you're always the
well, no, I'm accused to not be that. But look, you lose either one of these next 2 games. I mean, you just can't, right?
Right.
I mean, you can, but you can't.
Right, and that's why I said no, because everything kind of has to go perfect.
Where is your optimism level going to be if they go in? And look, here's the thing too: your next 3 games are at home. All right, so there's a little bit of an advantage there. Where's your optimism going to be if they soundly? I mean, I don't even guess if soundly beat is a worry here. All you have to do is win the game.
Mm-hmm.
If they beat the Dolphins and if they beat the Colts, where are you going to be?
I mean, it's going to be elevated. It'll depend partially on what the rest of the AFC North, or AFC in general even, is looking like. But yeah, obviously the more they win, the more my optimism will rise. I can't give you a great answer for does my answer to the question of will they make the playoffs, if that's going to change until we get to that point, until we're looking at the standings. But obviously, yeah, you got to win the next 2 games. And if you do that, I said if Baltimore loses their next 2 against Seattle and New England, then you're right back into this thing.
All right. If and this is a long way off, if this team makes the playoffs and if this team wins 1 playoff game, is this the best coaching job of Tomlin's career?
I would think so, just considering all the adversity this team's had to go through. If that scenario plays out where A, they make the playoffs, and B, they win a playoff game, which I think even the most optimistic of fans would say are pretty low chances right now, then yeah, I think that would be the best job. I mean, I had to go back through Tomlin's whole tenure, and obviously you got Super Bowl champion team to talk about too. But yeah, it'd be right up there.
What if they just make the playoffs?
Still be a pretty good job. It'd still be
playoffs.
Pretty.
Just trying to win a game. Playoffs.
Jamora. It'd be a pretty amazing job again to the hole this team was in, and to be on their third. We'll look back at it and say this team was 1-4 on the road with their 3rd string rookie UDFA former tryout quarterback, and that was a turning point of the season, and that'll be a mark of good coaching. So yeah, it'd be a pretty remarkable turnaround.
I would agree, but got to win the next game next, right? So,
and to be clear, that's my focus, and I'm sure that's your focus right now too. Is you have to take this game by game. Any sort of slip up, and this equation changes. If, and God forbid, if this team loses to Miami Monday night, then everyone's going to say the season's over, and it probably is, because that's going to be the real low point of the season. So all this optimism we're talking about, and talking about what's going to happen against Buffalo late in the year. I mean, none of that's going to matter. So
sure, we could be sitting here laughing, saying, "I remember that time Dave had all that optimism about the defense and that silly adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat." Dave's such a fool.
It'll mean nothing. And like Tomlin said, it's a fragile team right now, and they got to stack a lot of wins to get out of that fragile every game is the season kind of mentality. And so they got to win at least these next two to kind of get out of that step. And even after that, should they do so, you got a long, mountain to climb to get back in the playoff race.
Let me just rewind and close on this. The reason for kind of the little bit of optimism and excitement here as we head into the weekend bye in week 7 is solely based just on that one stat, and particularly in the last 5 since New England. Okay, I mean this, outside of third downs, this and the offense unfortunately or the defense getting put on a short. Look at how Randy is. That damn Wildcat pass. Against the damn Ravens. That an offensive decision hurt the damn defense. In that situation, that's one side of the football coaching decision that highly impacted the other side of the football, kind of thing there. But going back to it there, just on the stat alone and looking at what this defense has done, even though they've lost along the way here, in the last 5 games since the game against the Patriots, and who they did it against. And who is on the schedule for the next 6 games is where all my optimism is coming from, if that makes sense.
Sure, and that's basically where it comes from me as well. But I will say my final point is that this team will have to show they can win close games because they have done a bad job winning tight one-possession games. I know the Chargers game ultimately became one possession on the box score last year, but we know the Steelers jumped on those guys. They have done a bad job overall, whether you're talking Baltimore, Seattle, San Francisco, of winning tight games and finding ways to win. They're good at finding ways to lose, but not the opposite, not of closing games out. And that's going to be their mission, because even if they have the second half of the year we think is possible, these aren't going to be easy, 14-point victories, 17-point victories. They're going to be tight games, and this team's got to find ways to close games out.
They need to not be so good at snatching victory from the jaws of defeat.
Ain't that the truth? Put that on a bumper sticker.
Or no, snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. I'm sorry. Yeah. I had it all teed up, and I messed it up there. But yeah, look,
you're like the Steelers. You're like, you had it teed up and you screwed it up at the end. You're
quite honestly, in these next 6 games, it could come down to a kick or two, right? I mean,
sure.
Realistic, I could see definitely one of the games against Cleveland coming down to one. Can this team get into field position for Boswell to make one?
Even the Colts, I think they can beat the Colts, but I don't think it'll be an easy victory. I think it'll be a one-possession type game either way, and you got to come down to who's making that play at the end of the game to win it.
All right, we just talked about Boswell. Should we go to Boswell next?
Yeah, we should. I wrote the article on him this morning for Steelers Depot, and just because it's a bye week, and I can't jinx him for this weekend, so I felt kind of safe writing about it, but I just want to recognize how good of a year Chris Boswell is having compared to a year ago. He's a perfect 23 for 23 on all his kicks this year, 11 for 11 on field goals, 12 for 12 on extra points. You compare that to a year ago, after 6 games, he was 21 of 27, 77.8%. He was 5 of 8 on field goals, and it only got worse from there, and he was so close to losing his job. So I just want to do a little tip of the cap as a special teams guy and just say that Boswell's having a heck of a year and a big bounce-back performance. I don't know if it was truly the injury that hampered him last year or it was just one of those fluky bad years from kickers that happen. But Boswell's been just automatic, and just good for him for being able to turn his career around.
I was worried about him.
I was too. I think everyone was. No one knew what was going to happen. Even, Tomlin and Danny Smith basically said, I think he's on the right track, but we won't know until we know. And he's still a long ways to go, but I think we're kind of out of that hold your breath phase of Boswell where you're confident in him putting it through the uprights now.
I just go back to the kickers are weird birds, man.
They really are.
And I thought he would have missed 1 or 2 by now. I got to be honest with you. I really thought he would have. So definitely kudos to him. While we're at this kind of point in the podcast here, we just talked about a lot of math, and we kind of warned people on the Twitter machine ahead of time that we would. do listeners like that kind of talk? I mean, I know I get kidded a lot for, and I try to stay away from it as much as I can, but I think I have my passion, and I think the history of the stat alone has shown that it's worth talking about. So I'll just throw it out to the listeners. Do you like it when I talk about that stat, or would you just like that to be left on the side? There, send me a response to theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. Not that it's going to change me doing it, but I really think it's that important of a stat until I can find something. And I don't talk about it enough too. And maybe it's time to kind of segue into that. We did a little bit the other day there about the talk stat too, man. I mean, 80% win ratio when you win the turnover explosive play differential stat in a game by 2 or more, you're going to win the ball game. And it's a duh kind of stat, but I mean, it's so important. And the Steelers are getting turnovers now from the defensive side of football. They're doing a better job of not, well, I guess it depends on the game. San Francisco and the game against Baltimore, if you don't turn that ball over that one extra time there, I guess what I'm getting at is, ball security has never been more important than it is for the Steelers offense than it is right now, because of the sheer fact that they're not creating explosive plays. And I wrote about this last night. Not only the ability to push the football down the field more. This team is last in the league in deep passing. That can't continue, right?
Oh, absolutely. It cannot continue. They got to start getting more chunk plays.
And people say, you put too much onus on Dave wants to go deep every play. No, but I'm not saying you have to, and they're only attempting, 3 a game? 3 deep passes a game, something along those lines, 4. Let me pull up the numbers here for you. But they have got to start hitting 1 or 2 of these, because I think if you go back and you look at possessions, and especially those that start on your own side, of the 50-yard line, touchdown drives are generally as a result of there being at least one explosive play of 20 yards in there. You got to be able to get chunks, and you're not always going to be able to get chunks via a 1-yard pass to James Conner that he gets 24 yards of yak on. There, they've completed 0 of their 2 pass attempts deep down the middle of the field. Okay, and by a deep pass attempt, that means in the air over 15 yards from the line of scrimmage. So they're 0 for 2 there. They have run 12 plays from deep left, and they've completed 33% of those. But on throws on the other side, they have thrown deep 14 times, deep throws to the right, and they've completed just 14.29% of those, which I think comes out to 1 or 2, right? Completions on that side. So not good. You have nobody's saying that you got to throw deep 17 times a game. But in order for this offense to start doing and hitting some of the numbers that Alex talks about hitting, getting in that 6.5 range of offensive adjusted net yards per passing attempt, you got to start hitting 1 or 2 of these plays.
It's 2019. To win, you need to have an explosive offense that can create big plays. And I'll make it even simpler and just look at plays of 20-plus yards, plays from scrimmage of 20-plus yards. This year, the leaders in that are Kansas City, New England, Seattle, Atlanta, Minnesota, Dallas, Houston, Baltimore. Aside from Atlanta, who has historically bad defense, those teams are all doing pretty well this year and either playoff bound or in the hunt. The teams at the bottom of the list in terms of the fewest explosive plays created offensively are the Jets, the Dolphins, the Bears, the Colts, the Raiders, the Washington, and Pittsburgh, and Tennessee, and then Carolina right at the end there too. So those are some of the worst teams in football. So it's a pretty clear correlation between the two. That unless you either have an elite defense or a really good ground game, you better be able to create big chunk plays. While the Steelers definitely have a good defense, they need to have an offense that can complement that and create some momentum and splash plays on their own as well.
Those, like I said, once again, it'd be nice to see a study of how many touchdown drives over the course of the throughout the league, how many touchdown drives that are started on from inside, let's say your own 40, how many of those touchdown drives included at least one explosive play?
Yeah, that would take a lot of work, but I'd be curious, and I want to know who's good at that and who's not good at that this year.
And just this year alone, right? I mean, because why they put here's another Dave's first world problems here. You get drive stats, right? I mean, at a touch of a button, plays. Where the drive start at, and then also in any given stats book, you get longest play by a certain player, right? A longest reception, yards or whatnot. Why can't in a drive recap stat you just put the longest play yardage? That would help immensely, at a click of a button there. But once again, and look, can you generate explosive plays by not completing a pass more than 15 yards past the line of scrimmage? Yes, you can. But how many of those are you realistically going to get a game?
Yeah, not a whole lot.
So one thing that this offense has to be able to do, most definitely in these next, especially in these next 6 weeks here, is find a way to start generating that more explosive plays. There's just no two ways around it.
Yep, I mean, we talked about that from the get-go, and we'll keep talking about it until it changes.
Can they do that?
Again, I think the bye week will offer a chance to kind of reset and figure out the best ways to make adjustments to this offense. Because I will grant Fichtner that it's so tough to try to transform your offense in the middle of the season, and you're starting to do stuff with Rudolph, then he goes down. You're trying to get Hodges acclimated, then just comes down to forget about any of the big picture stuff for the offense. We're just trying to take it game by game and just have a decent enough game plan to do enough, the bare minimum, to put yourself in position to succeed. So it's been hard for Fichtner to try to make those probably broad, sweeping changes that are necessary for this offense to turn around and be more efficient and more effective under Mason Rudolph. So short answer, yes, I think they can, now that you have the bye week and a chance to kind of get back and reset this thing. But players got to make plays, and they haven't made enough of them this year.
What are you trying to do to try to generate more?
Letting Rudolph just be able to feel more comfortable taking shots. I think he has been a little too selective, but I think scheming it better, having routes be more dependent of one another and less independent, and not bank on receivers just winning their own route and their own battle. But with a deep ball, a lot of times it is just you got to make a play, obviously. So I don't know if there's a magical thing from it. I think it's maybe creating more opportunities, scheming it a little bit better, but just hoping that some of these young receivers step up, whether that's getting a James Washington back healthy or Deontay Johnson as he continues to mature and kind of grow into his role, because Deontay Johnson's like Terrell Edmonds. Edmonds is not supposed to play the snaps he played last year. He only played because Morgan Burnett got hurt, and Johnson's not supposed to be playing the snaps he's playing right now. He's only in there because Dante Moncrief fell apart. So I think that hopefully those guys can really start picking it up, and the game slows down for them, and they get in a place where they're more comfortable now and can start making big plays. I mean, Johnson's done a nice job this year, but I think there's certainly a long ways to go for him to improve.
Here's the rawness of the stats once again for those listening. Steelers have attempted 28 deep passes through 6 games. Now here's really it's technically less than that. That throw to Dante Moncrief that was intercepted in the game against Seattle, that didn't travel 15. It traveled more than 15 yards after it clanked off off of Moncrief's hands. But it is technically included in the stats as a deep pass. Okay? So that's one of them. Now that everybody has that visualized again, what you want to talk about another play that was really kind of a turning point in the game. That one right there was there. But I mean, overall, the Steelers have attempted 28 deep passes. They've completed just 6 of them for 207 yards. 2 of them going for touchdowns. You can recall both the touchdowns, right?
Which touchdowns were they?
The 2 long touchdowns, deep pass touchdowns to Deontay.
Yeah, and Juju is the other one.
No. One.
They're both to Deontay.
Yeah, both to Deontay.
Okay. Yeah.
One against Seattle, right? and one against San Francisco.
I know the one against the 49ers. What was the other one? Was it Seattle?
Drawing a blank now. You would think with just 6 of them we'd be able to. Let's go back to week 2 here real quick.
They were like 39 and 40 something yard touchdowns. The Bengals game was the other one.
Oh yeah, the
Bengals and 49.
Okay.
Yeah, the Yankee concept.
He got that's right. For sure. Okay, so 6 of them. One of them was a deep pass to Washington, right, from Ben in week 1.
45 yards, I think, right side.
Yeah, and you had one to the tight end not too long ago, and Nick, and trying to recall the last. I lost my place here. Nick Vanette had one. Johnny Holton is, of course, 0 for 4. He's got a hit on one of these before too long.
He's 0 for 5, I think.
0 for 4.
Oh, for deep ball. Okay, he's 0 for 5, yeah. I think. Just targets overall.
And Moncrief, let's see. Yeah, hopefully not having to throw to Moncrief too deep too much more. But anyway, in a nutshell, to quit belaboring that point, they got to start hitting some of these, and I think those are going to come from one of 4 players: Deontay Johnson, James Washington, Juju Smith-Schuster, or Holton.
I mean, I'll ask you: do you think this offense can do it?
I have my concerns. Rudolph has got. Look, here's the thing: we've seen him do it during the preseason. And I know it's lesser competition. I think you hit on it there at the top, though. He's going to have to start turning a few of these loose.
Yeah, I think so.
And if he does, then okay.
I just can't see this offense being as bad as it's been. I mean, just statistically, the probability of this offense being this bad with some talent and a really good offensive line for the rest of the season. Like, they're just going to have to. It wouldn't be regressing to the mean. I guess it'd be progressing to the mean, where they just, even if they're not great and they're just average at the deep ball, they can't be this just atrocious the entire season.
Right.
That's the way. I mean, that's maybe a bad reason for optimism, but
they should make they should make progress here.
Yeah, I think so too. All right. Anything else on that topic? I think we covered it pretty well. Some reasons for optimism.
Yes, definitely some reasons for some optimism. All right, where to from now?
That was about all that I had. Anything else you wanted to throw out, go for it. But otherwise, we can kind of move on and start wrapping up the show.
Okay, so I guess we should get to our buddies at MyBookie before we get into our picks, right?
Yep, let's do it.
Do you ever find yourself wishing that you could make some extra knowledge with your sports knowledge? At MyBookie, they want to make your dream come true this season. Between football season, the Major League Baseball playoffs, and the start of the NBA and NHL seasons, it's time to get off the sideline and get in on the action. If you're the kind of guy or girl who likes to bet a little and win a lot, try a parlay. For instance, if you like a couple of big favorites this week, parlays are perfect because they let you bet multiple games together for a much bigger payout. So if you're going to bet this season, do the smart thing and go to mybookie.ag, because no one gives you more ways to win. If you really want to support your team this season, don't just sit on the sidelines. Get in the game with MyBookie. And if you join right now, MyBookie will double your first deposit. Use promo code TERRIBLE, that's terrible, to activate the offer. That's promo code TERRIBLE to double your cash right now. Visit mybookie.ag today. You play, you win, you get paid. All right, let's get into some picks this week. And Alex, I am now 8-0 on Thursday nights. How do you like me now?
I just hope you don't have Patrick Mahomes in your fantasy leagues.
Actually, I was going against him in. I had him going in one and going against him in 3 others.
And right, so I forgot you're in 47 leagues.
So I had a net win last night, so to speak there. Obviously, and I think Alex and I both had, I know we did, both had the Chiefs minus 3.5 last night, so we both won that. Boy, what about the Broncos right now? They should hire Mike Munchak to coach their offensive line.
Joe Flacco was sacked more times last night than the Steelers have been sacked the entire season. Now that's not all on Munchak. Garrett Bowles is got to stop holding people. Like I just never seen a lineman that just is so. I don't even know what the word is. So habitual, I guess, in how he holds these guys. But yeah, that line's bad.
Joe Flacco in that pocket looks like something out of Night at the Roxbury.
I don't know what that means, but
you've never seen that's a fairly new movie, Night at the Roxbury.
What year is that come? That sounds like a 1970s kind of thing.
Oh no! Those guys on Saturday Night Live, Chris Kattan
98. 98. I was 5.
Okay. All right. Maybe it was longer ago than what
is it a good movie? It looked kind of.
No, not really. I mean, the skits are funny. The skits are funny, but the movie, like most SNL movies, not all that great.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's just get into this because your pop culture sucks. All right, the Arizona Cardinals at the New York Giants. I won't have the TV tuned in on this one, but the Giants are at home laying 3.
Yeah, give me the Giants. I think Barkley's going to come back. They're going to have Evan Ingram back. I know the Cardinals have been okay. Kyler Murray's done an okay job overall, but Giants at home, I'm going to go with them.
All right, I'm with you. Give me the Giants at home. Lay the 3 points here. Houston Texans at the Colts. This should be a good game. This is one of the ones, if Indianapolis wants to get back into maybe being in contention for this division, they better win this one. The Colts are at home laying 1 against the Texans.
No, I'm going to go with Houston in this one. Deshaun Watson not sacked in consecutive games for the first time in his career, playing some great ball right now. They're winning even without DeAndre Hopkins having a big game. I think this is the week Hopkins finally has that 100-yard touchdown performance. I'm going to go Houston by 2 scores.
Yeah, this is the Dave's stone cold lock of the century of the week for sure. Give me the Texans plus the 1 point. I like them. I don't know if they're going to blow them out, but I like them to win this game. The Miami Dolphins, who will play the Steelers, of course, in Week 8 on Monday night, are at the Buffalo Bills. The Bills laying 17 at home.
They'll have Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback. I think you mentioned that in the last show, likely to start against the Steelers, but more to the point, does Buffalo cover is the question. No, I don't think they cover. Miami showed a little bit of fight last week. Nearly got that win against Washington. I think Buffalo's obviously going to win this game. I do believe the Dolphins cover.
I think Buffalo's a good team this year, but if you look at their adjusted net yards on both sides, their offense is not all that great, really.
They're kind of like Pittsburgh,
right?
That defense is really good in Buffalo.
Right.
I'll give them that.
Will that be enough though to cover that? I don't think so. I'm with you on this one too. Give me 17 points on plus the 17 with Miami on the road against Buffalo. Minnesota at Detroit. This should be a good game to watch as well too. Detroit plus 2 at home against the Vikings.
Yeah, Minnesota finally got the air game going last week with Diggs with 2 or 3 touchdowns, whatever he finished with. I'm going to go with Detroit, though. I think you got to give them some credit. I picked against them a lot this year, but Matt Patricia's done a nice job in year 2. Kenny Galladay's had a good week to run games some better. They got Hawkinson back at tight end. So, the Vikings, I like them because they have a clear identity. Everything still goes through that run game. But I'm going to go with Detroit in this one just because I feel like you got to give them some props for winning. And obviously you got screwed last week by the refs.
Yeah, this one, this is an interesting game, tough one to kind of handicap, in my opinion here. I like that Vikings passing game. I like their ability to use Cook and all as well too. I have a feeling Minnesota gets a late field goal to win this one on the road, and it'll be another crushing in-division loss for the Lions as well too. So give me Minnesota late at 2 points on the road in this one. Oakland Raiders. We'll find out what Gruden and those boys are maybe this week. They got to go to Green Bay here. Green Bay laying 5.5, but Green Bay's got some banged up receivers, man.
Yeah, they were basically out of receivers last week. I don't know. Do we know the status of Devontae Adams? Is he gonna go?
I think it's still bothering him, and I think didn't they have one with a concussion maybe? Yeah, they're banged up.
Yeah, who was that got knocked out last week?
Was it Valdez?
Oh, Allison. No, I think it was
Geronimo Allison. Yeah.
Yeah, but still, I mean, Alan Lazard made some plays. They got Bildo Scantling. Aaron Jones can't be as bad as he was against the Lions. So give me
what?
Green
You
Bay.
want to talk about?
You had him on one of your teams, yeah.
Yeah, clanking right up. Well, you can.
Oh yeah, I played you in fantasy this past week. I destroyed you in our league.
Did you? Was that needed?
Yes, for the pop culture jab you took at me. I think what was it, like 88-44? Your team was terrible.
Yeah, it's a free league. I pay less attention to those free leagues. Besides, if I win it, then I can't pay out the money.
All right, fair enough.
Well, what do you got in this game?
Green Bay.
Yeah, give me Green Bay lay the 5.5 in this one as well too. Cincinnati at home, getting 4 points to the Jaguars.
Yeah, another game that will not be on my television. I don't know. Jacksonville's defense, I guess, is decent enough. They got a commitment to the run game with Fournette. Give me Jacksonville in this one just because, I mean, will the Bengals play Fred Johnson this week? Probably not, but who knows with the way that line's looking at right now. Cordy Glenn's been suspended for a game, so if you couldn't think that line got any worse. It's just been a mess. So long story short, give me Jacksonville.
Yeah, look, I think Cincinnati can at least make this game close. So give me Cincinnati. I wouldn't be surprised if Cincinnati got their first win in this one as well too. +4. I'll take Cincinnati +4. Rams on the road against the Falcons. What a mess both these teams are right now, and obviously the Rams making a deal, getting Ramsey. Well, that back cleared up in a hurry, didn't it? For Ramsey. Yeah. At some point, you got to think that the Rams are going to get this offense of theirs back on track as well. They still got a guy over there named Aaron Donald that's pretty damn good. On top of it, this one the Falcons are getting 3 at home. Give me the Rams to cover this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you, Dave, with the Rams here. I forget who it was that said that the Falcons are the fix-it team of the NFL. You got a problem, Falcons are going to fix it because they're just a mess right now. They defensively, I mean, the calls that they make, it feels like, what we were talking about with Keith Butler a year ago. So although Matt Ryan's playing having a heck of a season, I think this is the time for the Rams to get their offense back on track, and they beat Atlanta.
San Francisco on the road against the Redskins. San Francisco laying 10 on the road. Is that too big of a number for Shanahan's boys?
Well, who's a quarterback this week? I know I said it every week about Washington, but Haskins has gotten a lot of work. I don't know if it's still him or Keenum or McCoy or whoever, but regardless, now I'm going to go with the 49ers in this one, even with the big line. They have the best identity in football. That defensive front's excellent, whether you're talking Eric Armstead or inside linebacker with Fred Warner and Quan Alexander, some talent in the secondary too. So I think it's just a really well coached team and a lot of talent. Now they are missing Juszczyk. So I mean that is how are they going to be able to handle that? But still against Washington they should be able to win by I think 2 scores.
When you look at Justin net yard, the adjusted net yards per pass, San Francisco offense or team as a whole is one of those ones that gives you probably a little bit of hope when it comes to the Steelers. Now, that defense of theirs is fantastic. I mean, they got an ultra-low 3.20 differential stat, but their offense is 6.9. And what do we say that the Steelers were at there? 5.8 overall there. So, 1 point is huge when it comes to this stat, but it's not like this offense has been elite, but they haven't had to be elite. As far as that defense goes. I guess what I'm trying to say there is I really, really like this San Francisco 49ers team, the way they're put together this year. So I'm with you. Laying 10 on the road against the Redskins. Another interesting game. Two teams that are one of these teams needs to put the other one out of their misery this week. The Titans at home laying 2.5 against the Chargers. Something don't seem right here.
Yeah, what does Vegas know? How
many games had the Chargers lost in a row? I mean, they lost obviously to the Steelers. They lost the game to the Broncos ahead of that, right? Did they lose?
They'd won the one prior to that.
Okay, so the Chargers are trying to avoid a 3 consecutive losses here.
Yeah, and every close game they lose. So, I mean, I think this will be a close game, and that has not boded well for the Chargers. But I'm sure Tennessee's probably not great in close games either. Give me L.A. just because Tennessee. I don't know what that offense is going to do when you have a better quarterback, obviously with Phillip Rivers versus Ryan Tannehill. So yeah, it's a weird line, but I know Chargers are traveling. But give me L.A.
Give me the Chargers on this one as well, too. Lay the points. I think Phillip gets them back on track this week. Here's one we're going to be watching. Baltimore Ravens at the Seattle Seahawks here. Hopefully Philip Rivers, Russell Wilson can stay hot in this one. Seattle at home, laying 3. This should be a good one.
Yeah, that's going to be one of the games of the week. Obviously, Steelers fans are going to be circling, really rooting for Seattle in this one. I am going to go with Seattle in this one just because the Ravens' run defense has been a little shaky this year. I know they do have Brandon Williams back, but Seattle has a great ground game with Chris Carson, and Russell Wilson just playing out of his mind this year, cannot be stopped, even against, I think, a Ravens defense is talented and throws a lot at you schematically. I think Seattle's playing well, and I'm going to give them the edge in this one.
Yeah, the biggest thing here is, can they stop Lamar? Can they do the things defensively to stop Lamar Jackson from getting 100 yards with his legs?
All right, talk about great matchups. KJ Wright, Bobby Wagner versus Lamar Jackson. I think they have linebackers to shut them down, though.
So I think that's if they can keep Lamar Jackson from killing him with his legs, I think they got a chance in this. Now, Seattle did. Boy, you think Seattle would like to have Nick Vannett back about right now?
All right, they got Luke Wilson as a starting tight end. Will Disley out for the year.
I was after Luke Wilson early on there. Now all of a sudden he's the starter there with them. I'll do it. I'll take Seattle lay to 3 points, but I think my heart's involved in this one a little bit too much here. New Orleans on the road against the Chicago Bears. This is going to be a weird one. Chase Daniels versus Teddy Bridgewater, right? Who drew this one up at the start of the year? 3.5 Bears at home, favored in this one.
Yeah, so many quarterbacks lost this season already, and it's only week 7. Give me the Saints. They're just a better, well-rounded team with a better quarterback. The thing to note, though, I guess, is Kamara. I know he's been really hampered by, I think, some sort of foot or ankle injury. So that could be certainly a big swinging and deciding factor in this one. I'm going to go with the Saints, though, because they find ways to win those tough games, and that's the mark of a good team, well-coached team.
I'm going to go just because of the defense of the Bears here. So give Khalil Mack's enough for me to lay the 3.5 against kind of a banged up Saints team there. Philadelphia Eagles, another key game as far as that division goes. Philadelphia Eagles at the Dallas Cowboys. Who are the Dallas Cowboys? And really, who are the Philadelphia Eagles right now? But Dallas Cowboys at home laying 2.5.
Yeah, the seat's getting really warm for Jason Garrett, and the hearing from the Cowboys fans are saying that he's kind of had more of a thumbprint in the Cowboys offense as the year's gone on, taking kind of over what Kellen Moore's doing, and that's made this offense worse. I don't know. I think that both teams are kind of in really tough situations. I think Doug Peterson a much better coach than Jason Garrett. Someone's going to play. The team's going to play harder for. So I'm going to go with the Eagles in this one, just because you talk about kind of do or die situations. The Eagles always find ways to win. Cowboys always seem to find ways to lose.
Boy, both these teams need this game. I'll go with a lot of the same reasons that you went. I like Philadelphia in this game. Plus, I think Philadelphia can win this outright, too. So not only give me the plus 2.5, take the money line on the Eagles on this one as well, too. That brings us to, and by the way, that is the Sunday night game. So good one to watch there. The Monday night game, New England Patriots at the New York Jets. The Patriots are favored by 10.5.
I kind of want to say the Jets will cover just based off of the way Darnold played last week. I mean, he played so well, but I can't see them having that kind of success. I can't see Robert Anderson having a 92-yard touchdown the way that he had last week. So give me New England win by, let's say, 13 points. But it might be a close game in the first half, kind of the way it was when the Patriots played the other New York team last week.
What's the biggest thing here if you're Belichick? What are you trying to take away? Bell?
Yeah. I mean, Belichick's always great about taking away your best weapon, so he's going to stack the box and definitely take away Le'Veon Bell, but also just don't give it the big play. Force that offense to really try to move the whole way down the field. Probably not good enough to do so, but sure, Le'Veon Bell. Anytime the Steelers played the Patriots, the first name that came out of Bill Belichick's mouth was Le'Veon Bell, and that's the guy you want to take away.
Man, I just got a feeling that this will end up in another Patriots blowout here. So give me Patriots on the road late. The only way it doesn't is to have kind of a weird start to the game like we saw. The Patriots not be able to to finish drives early and let the Giants kind of hang around like they did. But when the smoke even cleared in that one, they ran away with it. But give me the Patriots on the road. Is anybody going to beat the Patriots this year, Alex?
I mean, somebody, I guess, but on paper, there's not a game where I would pick the opposition.
I'll lay the 10.5 in this one. All right, no Steelers game to pick this week. So with that, I think they will beat the bye. Matt Filer shall we go? You got anything to cover before we get into the email? What did you think about, did you read some of those comments from Le'Veon Bell in the Athletic article?
I really didn't. I just saw like one or two, but what stuck out to you?
I mean, he's all over the map. Yeah,
was he saying about somebody regretting something about Pittsburgh?
Just kind of regretting. I think not getting back to Ben Roethlisberger and some of those things. And I think overall the feeling thought that they should have won a championship there with those guys there. He didn't have any regrets of turning down the offer. Kind of called it, a series of franchise tags.
Sure.
Whatever. Let me ask you: do you still think Le'Veon Bell is going to be a New York Jet after this year?
I do,
Okay.
absolutely. But and I'll say this for Bell, because I know that Bell and Brown kind of got lumped together, at least from the national media. They're very two different guys. I hold no grudge and no ill will against Le'Veon Bell. I like Le'Veon Bell. I think he's a good dude. Maybe he hasn't always made the best decisions or decisions I would agree with, but what do I know? I think Steeler fans will remember him a lot more fondly than they will, obviously, Antonio Brown.
I'm gonna say he's a talented dude. I'm not gonna say he's a good dude. I think he's a guy that's kind of.
Well, he's never really gotten himself into trouble the way that AB's never been in that. I mean, yeah, he did early. I mean, I know the whole LeGarrette Blount thing, but it's not on the AB level. You know what I'm saying?
I've always kind of viewed him as a guy that's not comfortable in his own skin. Okay? The guy always looking to live up to something else. To be that rap star. I get the sense that he's not comfortable in his skin. Period. And I think he's trying to please too many people, and I think I just have not liked his overall watching him grow up and having to handle the challenges of life.
Fair enough, but I think there's a pretty.
I don't think
clear...
he's a bad evil
Sure.
dude. I just don't think he's made a lot of wise choices along the way.
I just want to say this. I mean, you can draw a distinction between the way that Bell left Pittsburgh and how Antonio Brown left Pittsburgh, right? As in two separate issues.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely contractual.
Right. It wasn't AB going just Looney Tunes. Bell's never been at that point. I think he handled it, at least in terms of the public way of it. He wasn't lashing out at the organization in that way that AB did and hasn't obviously had the issues AB's had, post-Pittsburgh.
I think he could have done a better job of protecting his brand by staying low, keeping a much lower profile through all that.
Yeah, I think there's things he could regret, and obviously he's talking about regrets he's had in that interview. But I just want to say that I remember him more fondly than Antonio Brown.
If you want to look at his play on the field, absolutely. He's great. Probably still maybe up there, top 2-3 all around running backs in the league. Although he's not off to a great, I guess, start. Technically, in 5 games with the Jets, he has 256 yards rushing, 1 touchdown receiving. He does have 28 catches, I guess, for 100, but just 169 yards and 1 touchdown right there. I mean, he's being paid a lot of money, right? I mean, you would expect this guy to finish top 2, top 3, but it's not. It's definitely not trending that way right now. Easily the best pass protecting running back in the league, and he has been that for a while.
Yeah, for sure. And to his credit, despite the Jets' tough start, he's kind of shut up. He's gone to work. He's talked about being optimistic about this team. He's saying all the right things, at least externally, which, again, is not something AB would do. So I just want to give him credit because I think he's a tough dude. He's played through a lot, been through a lot, and that, in generally speaking, has not been someone to try to rock the boat, at least in New York, with how things are going.
I think his biggest thing is how he's handled success. I don't think like I said, I don't think he's navigated that great.
He's handled it better than AB, which is the point I just want to make and to draw a difference between the two.
All right, Connor Dietrich writes in on Matt Filer. I know PFF grades don't mean a whole lot, but it stood out to me during Sunday night's game that Matt Filer is their fourth. Didn't we just kind of tackle a question about Matt Filer recently about PFF grades? I thought we did. But this just came in about an hour ago. I know that Matt Filer is their fourth highest right tackle. Has he really been that good? I struggle to watch O-line closely during games, so I figured I'd ask the experts rather than try to come up with my own. Matt Filer's been good, man. I mean, is he the fourth best right tackle in the game right now? I don't know. I don't know if I'd go that far, but man, he was moving furniture in that game against the Chargers.
Yeah, I think he's been good. I don't think top 5 right tackle good, but I think he's been solid, consistent, strongest lineman on the team. You know what you're getting from him. He plays through injury, played a lot of different positions, had moved around, shuffled around a lot in training camp, didn't get to rep right tackle a whole lot, but just steady and consistent, and that's what you want in an offensive lineman.
Boy, he really, and look, I think I mentioned this at one point on a question about Matt Filer. I don't lay in bed at night staring at the ceiling saying, man, I wonder how Matt Filer is going to play. Right. But, I mean, there are definitely times in pass rushers that you kind of grit your teeth a little bit. But, I mean, the Steelers overall have done a good job of getting the ball out. Heck, 5 sacks through 6 games, man. Ain't nothing wrong with that. I mean, no matter how quick you're getting the ball out.
Yeah, I have him only charged with 1 sack this season, so good stuff.
Am I crazy? And no, that's not me asking. That's Brad Frazee asking. Gentlemen, I really enjoy your show. My brother and I listen religiously. I'm not sure this is a question as much as it is a statement, but am I crazy for not being all that worried about this team? They feel more like the teams I grew up loving than the head case mess that they've been the last 5 or 6 years. The injury to Ben, while bad, may have been a blessing. It has enabled this team to get this defense more in line than previous years when offense could hide the poor play. I know it's sacrilege, but if I had to sacrifice 1 year to right the defensive ship, count me in. Keep up the great work and keep up the pop culture references, Dave. Us 40-somethings love them. Take care, Brad. Look, I mean, they definitely don't have the drama that they've had. So it's been nice not having to write every other post about AB did this or that on Twitter or this lawsuit. Alex and I really, really enjoy writing about what happens on the field as opposed to writing what happens off of it. So there's that end of it. I mean, I don't know, Brad. I mean, you just heard 45 minutes of us talking optimistic about this team right now with 6 games gone in the season. There's reason to watch. I'll tell you that the rest of the way.
To the one point I want to address there is that I don't believe that the defense is playing well because they know the offense is playing poorly and they have to pick it up. I think that's been talked about, but they're not playing well solely because of it. It's not a mutually exclusive thing where you have to lose your quarterback in order for your defense to play well. Defense is playing well because they've added talent and they're a more experienced team and they're just executing better. So I don't view it as, well, you lost your quarterback and now your defense is playing well. I think the defense would have played the same had Ben still been healthy and been playing. So I don't view those things as being mutually exclusive. But the defense is playing well, and I'm happy to see them finally get to the level we've been waiting for a long, long time.
You asked me all those questions about Keith Butler. Where are you on Keith Butler?
Well, I said, in the mailbag is that would I bring him back? Probably not, because
regardless of what happens, you wouldn't.
I mean, I don't want to say there's no scenario where he can't come back. Where this team wins the Super Bowl, then obviously he's probably going to come back. So it's unlikely as we sit here today because, I think any coach that had the talent that this defense has right now, all the acquisitions they've made over the last, 24 months, most coaches could succeed with that. And I still think there are some issues with Butler that I've pointed out that I'm still not happy with. But in reality, could I see this team bringing him back? Yes, I could, because of the loyalty factor I talked about earlier and the fact that statistically this defense will come out looking probably pretty good this year. And that'll be a good justification for the Steelers to say, yeah, let's bring this guy back.
Sean Irvine writes in, Dave and Alex, at what point do you bring in a dedicated quarterback coach and take those responsibilities off of Randy Fichtner's plate? You could get away with having him in both roles before, since Ben basically took care of himself along with more seasoned backups, but with quarterback room that now consists of second-year Rudolph and a rookie undrafted free agent in Duck and Paxton Lynch. Bless his heart. One would think that a full-time quarterback coach would go a long ways in development and preparedness of those guys. I bet you're chomping at the bit to get to answer this one.
I mean, it's a good point. I don't think you're wrong about that. It's always hard to know the inner workings of the coaching staff and what's working and what isn't, and what adjustments can be made. Now, I will say is they do have a guy who's obviously not, Matt Sims, who's not the true, he's not listed as the quarterback coach. He's listed as an assistant coach, but he works closely with the quarterbacks. He did so at South Carolina, where they brought him over. So, but obviously there's a difference between Matt Sims, who's a pretty young guy, versus a dedicated, maybe veteran quarterback's coach. And that's a great point, because there's justification in the past was, well, Ben's Ben, he can kind of basically do his own thing, and you don't need to really coach him, and you can make it work. But now that you have all these young quarterbacks that really need the time and dedication, sure, it could be an issue. So fair point. Nothing really you could do right now about it. You really can't hire anybody middle of the year. You just lean on Fietner and Sims and whatever coaches can kind of help out there. But point taken. I think that's a fair criticism.
All right, my third write-in from John Crum. Hey, David and Alex, hope all is well with you guys. So I have two questions for this year and next year. Assuming the Steelers can eke out a playoff berth, what chance do they have of actually making some noise come playoff time? I feel like it'll have to be carried by the defense in a way we haven't seen since the prime Dick LeBeau days. Number two, I know it was only a super small sample size, but Ben's limited play wasn't exactly encouraging as his best play game in preseason against the Titans. Am I overreacting? Are we to assume he will get better next year? Please talk me off the ledge, or do what you guys do best and keep it subjective. Is it subjective or objective?
Depends what we're talking about.
I guess it could be both. Appreciate your hard work. P.S. I'm only 24 and 100% hashtag Team Alex. With the references. It's time to fire back and start hitting Dave with some early SpongeBob references. Have at me here. John, first of all, assuming the Steelers eke out a playoff berth, what chance? Man, I don't even want to try to – I just tried my best to campaign why there should be optimism about this team getting in the playoffs. It's hard to me envision eking out. I will tell you this. I think you're on the right. For them to actually, assuming they get in, for them to get a playoff berth, I would think the defense would have to play a big role in it there. So, number one, I think that answers that, and I think Alex would agree with me there.
Yeah, I mean, if they get in, obviously the offense has played better. The defense has played no worse, or definitely played better. I couldn't answer that. I mean, we'd have to have that discussion based on everything that would transpire to get them into the playoffs. But if they do, then that means that defense is playing at a high level, and defenses usually really start separating themselves in the playoffs. And you're a good defense, you have a chance. So possibly, but we're obviously a long ways away from having that discussion.
As far as question number two, sample size and Ben, and not exactly encouraged. He's wondering if he's overreacting about the game and a half that Roethlisberger played this year. And I'd say yes.
Probably are. Yep.
Look, he wasn't great in a deep ball, but I mean, we see now how great that Patriots defense was, and when you're talking about a Steelers offense that. Man, geez, I mean, it was Juju and Ben, and they were going to take Juju away. Moncrief dropping the pass. Make no mistake, you go back to certain turning points in that game, right? A couple of short yardage situations and all. And Ben,
the fourth down drop by Moncrief.
Fourth down drop. I mean, before that game really got out of whack there, it was a little bit of a game. The Steelers shot themselves in the foot. Obviously, Ben was not great. One of 9 or 10 deep balls in that game. It just wasn't good all the way around. So just throw out what you saw. Pretend none of that happened with Ben, and let's see what happens when he comes back from this elbow injury here. Wes Lee writes in. Let's see. Hey, Dave, I saw this post in Steelers Depot about Devin Bush being a Cobra. Remember this movie, and I'm clicking on the link, and Scream Factory TV. I'm not it's Yeah, absolutely I do. About the snakes and all like that. I do remember that movie, and Alex would have no idea what I'm looking at and talking about right now. But that movie, Wes, man, that movie scared the hell out of me as a kid. And if anybody knows the movie that we're talking about from, I guess it was 70s or 80s, man, as a kid, it's scared that 1973 is when that movie.
The movie's just a bunch of S's.
Yeah.
I heard. Unless the snake's on a plane, you don't have me on this one.
But anyway, yeah, Wes, I remember that one. This one says from Ryan Osterguy, Switzer. Hey guys, long-time listener, big fan of the show. Need to know why the Steelers still have Switzer on their roster instead of Eli Rogers. Go. Well, I just got a sneeze attack there.
Yeah, right
Switzer gets 2 yards on punt returns and is pure garbage in the passing game. Thanks, guys. Seems like we answer this every show.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to like the answer here, and I understand that people want to move on from Switzer, but they trust him. He does make good decisions. He's got good ball security. They trust him back there for special teams. The stat I will point out, I had on Twitter yesterday, and I don't know if you saw this one, Dave. Ryan Switzer caught his 50th pass against the Chargers. He's averaging 6.42 yards per catch in his career. That is the lowest in NFL history of any receiver with at least 50 career receptions. So NFL record low for Switzer. And I was wondering if Switzer was going to everyone was on my Twitter timeline saying Switzer's going to see that one. But just a stat. But to his credit, and I'd say I even tweeted nice things about him the day before, is that, again, he does make good decisions. He is a smart, a high IQ player that isn't going to make that disastrous type play. So I'm not saying that's a good enough reason to keep him. I'm sure people will not like hearing that answer, but if you want to know why, they trust him, and that has value, and that's why he's still a Steeler.
Not enough reason.
Yeah, fair. I mean, that's fair to say. Don't shoot the messenger here. I mean, I think that's the reason why he's still on this roster. You know me, I would have brought Eli Rogers back after, week 2, week 3. But I don't know why they haven't, but that's their decision.
Man, that guy, other than that 7-yard out in the red zone, now you watch, against the Dolphins, he'll have a 3-yard touchdown, okay?
All right.
And, go ahead.
Well, to be fair, is that number, that 6.42 yards per catch, the lowest in NFL history, I mean, that's not all his fault. The Steelers use him like a running back where it's just a lot of short concept. There's really no chance for him to get vertical. Obviously, he doesn't break any tackles. He's got no functional strength at all. He can make some guys miss on kick returns whenever he's, got a head of steam, but he can't break tackles. So, I mean, the reason why his number is so low is partially because of his own limited skill set and ability to get yak, but also because the Steelers do ask him to basically just run a route tree very similar to a running back.
Would he be on another NFL team?
Not a good one. Not a deep receiver room. He would not. No.
I mean if you cut him tomorrow, I find it hard that he would surface anywhere.
He wouldn't get claimed. I'm pretty confident in that. He might end up somewhere, but I don't think he would get claimed right away.
All right, Adam Michael writes in, good day, Dave and Alex. Things are looking up for the Steelers defense with special young talent on all levels. You got Watt and Tuitt up front. You got Bush in the middle. Well, you don't have Tuitt right now, Adam. Nelson on the outside and Minka on the back end. Question for you both just for fun. Seeing as Edmonds and Minka are from the same class with similar pedigree, odds are low the Steelers will be able to bring back both at the end of their deals. Who would you put money on them keeping? Wow, we're a long way from that. I mean, look, you're going to have you got fifth-year options that you can pick up on both those guys as well too. So we'll definitely see when it comes to that. But I would think Minka is the guy that you're more likely to sign to get signed back to a long-term deal come that time.
I do too. He's the better player, so more likely, but long ways to go in each of their careers.
And you don't like to see the Steelers lately trending to not getting first-round picks re-signed, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's happened too often lately. Jarvis and Artie.
Jarvis and
Dupree.
Artie and Dupree. And who was after? Well, unfortunately, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
That's obviously not their own doing. I mean, you should be able to get back on the train with Watt, right?
Right.
But there you go there. Jared Taylor writes in, Juju, hello, Dave and Alex. Do you think Juju will be able to see the ball more going forward? I know it's backup quarterbacks and they have different plan, but I would think they would try harder to get him easier touches. P.S. I'm an LSU student. Really wish the Steelers could have gotten Foster Moreau. Yeah, I'm with you, Jared. I really like Foster. I think you're starting to see now why the Raiders got him where they did as well too. So that's definitely could be one that got away there. Look, here's the thing, Jared. I think that stuck out when going back through that tape the other day. They're going to have to run some more RPOs, I think. I think early in games maybe to be in a more to get Juju maybe involved. Maybe, either Juju on those quick slants as part of an RPO, depending on what the conflict player does, or depending on what teams do on the outside, maybe you throw the quick dreaded screen pass to him. I do think you have to try to do a better job of getting the ball in his hands out in space.
I agree, and there's a variety of ways you can do that, the things you talked about, but, you can win the occasional game with him catching one pass for 7 yards, but you won't win many with that stat line, so you got to find a way to get your best player involved.
Absolutely, and it's great that he's telling Randy, just run the ball, we're running successful, and him being fine with one catch for 7 yards, and the funny thing about that scenario, those plays there too, was it was just the offense staying within the offense, not doing a lot of things that causes a young quarterback to have to do a lot, because quite simply you ran a RPO to Juju to the left side on a quick slant. You turn around on the very next play, and what do, Alex?
I don't remember what they did in the next play.
They ran an RPO out of the same formation, flipped the side, and it was a handoff to Benny Snell for 7 yards. Two RPOs back to back, same play, 14 yards.
There you go. Pretty good offense for this team standard.
And there was also probably a play we need to get to as well too, the touchdown play to James Conner.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this one on a previous show, but I did a video, which you can see on Steelers Depot. It'll be easier to watch that. It's a short 5-minute video than me trying to explain it, but basically just getting the back in the flat, out leveraging the linebacker, covering him, kind of using a pick and a rub to make it harder for the linebacker to work through traffic, and just kind of a short, efficient pass to your playmaker, get him one-on-one with a linebacker, unless he gets caught in traffic, in which case your back's wide open. Use that on third down against the Ravens to convert. Use that for Connor's 26-yard touchdown. It's a nice play by Fietner to get the ball out quick and get the ball in the hands of your playmaker.
Same play they tried to run to Samuels too, but didn't convert, right?
Yeah, that was the 2-yard loss. Lofted, yeah, that play we had that long discussion about on the podcast a week ago. Yeah, same play.
All right, and also, why is Nick Vannett doing his best to dodge a player on that play?
Yeah, I don't know if he was trying to avoid OPI. He didn't want to bump him. I'm not sure on that play, but either way, the idea still worked. Got him one-on-one. So, if you get Connor on a linebacker one-on-one, I like that matchup for Connor.
And great play call at the time, because the Chargers did not play a lot of man defense in that game.
Yeah, well, I guess they were in man that play.
They were in man that play.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, you're saying okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. And it can work against zone. Well, it would work better against man for sure. So yeah, it was a really good play call and a good way to move the sticks on third. And obviously that play turned into a touchdown.
Right. So I'm with you. And that quick little recap of yours is fantastic. If people have not seen it on SteelersDepot.com, I think it's like a 6 minutes, right? 6.5 minutes.
Yeah, about 5.5. I try to keep them shorter than I used to, because I know people kind of want to get in and get out. So 2 plays to look at: Ravens game, Chargers game, same concept, short minute, and hopefully you guys can check it out.
All right, the refs stink. That kind of reminds me of, and this will of course be over Alex's head. The great Jay Giles band, Love Stinks. Yeah. Love stinks. All right, ref stink from Jeff Arbogast writes in, hey guys, really enjoying the extended podcast. The refs keep missing calls, and all of the Tide challenges and reviews built in aren't helping. Does the NFL evaluate refs based on live calls and based upon that rating getting rid of bad refs? I'm sure there's some sort of that check and balance system in there, Jeff. Tinfoil hat time. I also heard on the interweb that Al Riveron was a childhood Raider fan and holds a grudge over the Immaculate Reception. That is why he insists on screwing the Steelers Steelers in every way possible. Just food for thought. Keep up the great work, Jeff from West Virginia. Look, I nobody loves putting on the tinfoil hats as much as I do. I love reading way too much into certain things. That's a little bit too much foil for me.
Yeah, that's not accurate. What was the first part? I wanted to respond.
Does the NFL evaluate refs based on live calls, and based upon that rating, get rid of the bad refs?
Yeah, they do have a graded system. Each ref gets graded each week. I don't know the whole process of it, but yeah, refs do get graded on their performance.
All right, this one from John Caldarelli back in. Dave and Alex, some of your emails have questioned Mason Rudolph as the starting quarterback, his validation as an extra third-round pick, or even his rank among the top quarterbacks in the 2018 NFL Draft. This is good. I remember reading this one the other day, but we didn't get to it. Know well that his professional resume is very limited at this time, but my personal thought as these. As much as I'm a big fan of Duck Hodges and love the success story, Rudolph is our starting quarterback. His achievements at Oklahoma State, 32-9 as a starter, his physical profiles, blah, 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 and his quarterback maturity for the game with 13,600 career passing yards, 324 yards per game, made him a steal in the round 3 of the draft. I see him as the perfect professional blue-collar fit for the Steelers. As Hodges matures, I could see him as a strong number 2 with the ability to lead over an extended period of time if needed, something I never felt with Dobbs or Landry Jones. I believe Mason Rudolph was a first-round talent and could prove to be our next franchise quarterback. As mentioned, his pro resume is limited at this time, but his advanced maturity and his vision, accuracy, and arm strength are evident. I think his potential is unlimited. Over the next few games, we will know much more. I think that's the biggest thing about your email there, John, is the next 10 games. We are going to learn a ton about, or at least I hope, about what Mason can and cannot do. With further repetitions, I suspect Rudolph's comfort level and rapport with teammates and coaches will allow him to showcase his full potential. Not only will he exhibit that short control passing game, but also a deep throw ability will blossom and really excite Steeler fans. A bold prediction, but I believe he may prove to be the best pure pocket quarterback selected in the 2018 draft. P.S. I wonder how Rudolph grades out in Bill Dwayne Charles Parcells' 7-point quarterback profile. Thanks again for your fine podcast, John Caldarelli. John, we have mentioned this several times in the past, and I've written about it several times as well, too. Mason Rudolph checked all 7 of those boxes of the Bill Parcells grade. Best pure quarterback selected in the 2018 draft. Let's pump the brakes right there just right now. But look, regardless of what all has happened with Rudolph, I'm still bullish on him.
Yeah, I'm optimistic too. Someone asked me the other day, yesterday's mailbag, I should say, choose one quarterback at the AFC, from the AFC North to lead your team. I guess I don't know the exact parameters of the question. So who would you choose, Dave? Any quarterback, including Ben? Who would you take to kind of, I guess, start your franchise, or if you were building a team, who would you take?
Oh man, I'm not. I mean, a healthy Ben right now.
Yeah, that's what I said. Well, I assume Ben's healthy. I said I would think. But you got Lamar. Lamar's playing really well, and you got long-term outlook. I guess you could consider too.
I would really have to punt right now in that situation, having to choose somebody outside of Ben. I just haven't seen enough. I mean, let's face it, Baker. Baker's had his problems. I figured you weren't going to choose
Baker. Yeah, I knew you weren't going to choose Baker.
And not because of who he plays for and all. It's just I need to see more from him, man. Mm-hmm. I need to see more from Mason. I need to see more out of Lamar. I know who Andy Dalton is by now, but you know what? If not Ben, if I threw Ben out right now, I might have to take Andy.
Over Lamar? Oh, I would take Lamar second on my list. I go Ben and Lamar as the number 2 guy.
I mean, if you put the right talent around Andy, good offensive line and all, I think
Margaret Lewis said that for a long, long time. It didn't work out too well.
But anyway, look, here's the thing that man, just the next 10 games, assuming, let's hope Mason can stay healthy, but he has slowly progressed. These next 6 games in particular for Mason, I want to see him push the ball down the field more. I want to see him Look, there's one thing that we saw Devlin Hodges do great on one of those, on really his first completion in the NFL. That timing out pattern to Deontay. We ought to see Rudolph nailing those, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Especially
For
to
sure.
Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Much of those two have played. So, yeah, I'm in the sit and wait mode when it comes to the quarterbacks right now.
Fair enough.
Rosters by from Todd Gensler. Hey guys, great commentary as all. When did this one come in? 2 days ago and night. 3 quick points. I'm always concerned about this team's play under Tomlin following a bye as well as playing weak teams. Here we have both. Number 2, and I guess this is talking about after the bye, what are your thoughts about the NFL expanding the roster numbers as well as allowing more to get a helmet on game day? With all the injuries and players we have lost on waivers, it'd be nice for every team to have an expanded roster like 60 plus practice squad with 53 getting a hat, especially since the NFL continually preaches safety. Glad to hear everyone within reason feels that Rudolph is a starter when he returns and Duck the capable backup that he is. Thanks, and go Steelers. Here's the thing. I do think, and I bet the NFLPA is trying to push for this as well, too. Bigger rosters, right?
Yeah, I'm for expanding some rosters. I know the Colbert's talked about the reason why he's okay with the active roster remaining the same, because if you're a team with more injured players, then you have a disadvantage in terms of the number of guys available to you than another team. So I'm okay with that. I'm generally fine with how things operate right now, though, and I think rocking the boat might have some unintended consequences.
Where is the competitive where do you draw the line on the competitive balance on the 53-man roster and the active? Because I get it. I, for one, get it. I mean, everyone hates to lose a Fred Johnson, right? Or Tuzar Skipper, but it gives those bottom end of the barrel teams a chance to maybe sneak in a talent there too, which helps the overall competitiveness of the league, right?
Right. So I'm okay with how everything exists in its current form.
I would maybe say expand the 53 by maybe 3 more, and maybe the active game day roster by 1 more. Okay, but
Okay.
I'm not. I think it's easy, Todd, to look at this and have a results biased look at it, right, Alex? Because of the Steelers just losing Fred Johnson and losing Tuzar Skipper, it's easy to say, "Oh man, this would work out so much better for the Steelers if if there was a bigger roster here." But that's the whole thing there. You have to look at this from a league-wide competitive balance issue, Todd, and that's why, man, it certainly does suck to lose the Fred Johnsons and the Skippers or whatnot. But on the same, I don't want to see wholesale changes. I would like to see maybe 3 or 4 on, maybe make it become a 56-man roster and maybe have the same, I don't know, 7 or 8 inactives a week, but that's as far as I go.
Yeah, I hear you.
All right, I guess that should get it, Alex. I mean, we got a lot of these late questions in. One other one here it says, give Connor a break, from our buddy Mark Chapman. I think Mark Chapman leads the chapter of the Devlin Hodges fan club as well, too, if I'm memory not mistaken. Hey, David Alex. Do you think it might be a good idea to rest Connor in Week 8 against the Dolphins? Might be a good time to see the tandem of Snell and Edmonds, which sounds like a law of Connor, Snell, and Edmonds, attorneys at law. You only rest Connor if he's not healthy enough to play.
Yeah, this team's in a fragile state, as Tomlin talked about. There's no time to rest. There's no time to assume anything, even if it is Miami. So, no, if Connor can go, and I assume that he will, he's going to start, and I think he's going to play well. So, no, you're not resting Connor unless he just is simply too injured to go.
All right, with that, I think we should head into the bye weekend here, Alex, with you and I kind of in a fragile state. So, with that, you can follow me. Do we get everything we need to? I think we did, right?
Mm-hmm. I hope so.
All right.
About 2 hours. I hope we got everything.
All right. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. You can follow the show at Terrible Podcast. You can email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do, my wife's raising her eyebrows there. Why are you raising your eyebrows? Uh-huh. So there you go. You get here. What kind of issues do I have heading into the weekend? There's not enough time. All right, with that, follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do, want to donate to the cause, please go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button up right navigational bar. If you would like an ad-free version of the site, please go to SteelersDepot.com and hit the ad-free button for 1 calendar year. For $25, you can have access to SteelersDepot.com and an ad-free version of it. And with that, Alex and I will be back to recap all that's happened during week 7. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.